Yo, what's up, guys? We're back. We're going to be doing another breakdown and predictions video. This week it's for UFC 281, and this is a big card, man. We got two title fights with Israel Adesanya taking on Alex Pereira, Carlos Barza taking on Weili Zhang. We got Dustin Poirier versus Mike Chandler in this card in a grudge match, and a lot of other good stuff. So I'm really excited for it. It should be a good one. So just before we get this video started, I want to give a big shout out to the sponsor of this video, which is CashflowMMA.com. And they've been killing it this year, and especially lately, man. They're back on a roll again. So CashflowMMA.com, if you look at their bet, most recently, UFC Vegas 63, they had a parlay with Christian Rodriguez and Phil Hawes and Roman Dolidze fight not to go to decision. That obviously hit there with Christian Rodriguez winning in a first-round finish, Roman Dolidze winning in a first-round finish. So no sweat there, easy pick, and they got the job done there. And then this past week as well, they had a bet with the parlay of Miranda Maverick and Mario Batista that won. And then obviously the Chase Sherman fight didn't end up happening. But another successful parlay for CashflowMMA.com. And they've been one of the best bettors this year, the entire year, consistently for MMA. And currently, if you go to their website, they are doing a promotion right now where you could sign up for free until the end of 2022. So definitely urge you guys to go over there, check out their page, get access to the last few events for free and their bets, and I think you'll come away with some money, man. So if you go over there, use the promo code MMA Guru, then you can get access to their bets for free until the end of the year, and you'll get access to some of the best handicappers in the game currently. So CashOnMay.com, it is going to be in the bio, and I definitely urge you guys to go there and check it out. So CashOnMay.com is the sponsor of this video, and I really appreciate them for doing that. And then just outside of that, if you guys want to hit the like button, then that would definitely be appreciated. Let's try to get over 150 likes on this video. That would be awesome, man. And besides that, if you want to check out some bets, I already do have some bets on this card and some bets for everything else in the week. You know where to go, patreon.com/MAPredictionGuru. The link is going to be in the description below. And yeah, man, I mean, we've been killing it this year on bets. And so far, if you were a member of the Patreon, you bet $100 per unit, you'd be up over $9,000 for the year. And if you got a whole yearly package, it's only $300. So really huge return on investment. I really urge you guys to go over there, help support the channel, make some money, and be a part of the community. And definitely really love all the people that are over there on Patreon, help me do what I do. So thank all you guys, and thank everyone that wants to go over there and help support as well. But let's get into this card here. And this first fight of the night, we got Carlos Ulberg taking on Nicolai Negumereanu. And this is an interesting fight. This is a fight I think could go either way. It's close on the money line, and I do agree with that because Carlos Ulberg, we all know him as Israel Adesanya training partner, City Kickboxing guy, and he's kicking off the card for the 4 City Kickboxing fighters that are representing at UFC 281, but he's still kind of unproven. He has won 2 fights in a row in the UFC, but he got knocked out in his UFC debut. He's 2-1 so far. His last one was impressive. He got that knockout, but even the win he had over Fabio Cherant was a little bit shaky. Obviously, the KO loss to Kennedy Nzechukwu was a bad look, so he's still kind of trying to prove his worth here in the UFC. And with Nicolai Negumereanu, he also has done really well in the UFC. He's won 4 fights in a row. He's been more fighting lower level competition, and I do believe this is the best fighter that he's faced to date in the winning streak that he's had. So we're going to see if he's going to be able to rise up to the occasion and get the win. And it's kind of a clash of styles with both these guys. With Carlos Ulberg, I think in his UFC debut, you can kind of throw that fight out because Kenny Nzechukwu has a real weird style. And he's super tall, long, rangy, and he was really just using a high guard, trying to block everything, being very defensively sound, and then let Carlos Ulberg come to him and wear himself out. And I think Ulberg was real amped up because of his UFC debut. Maybe he got a little bit tired because of that too, and was throwing a lot of volume. He was throwing the kitchen sink at Kennedy, really trying to get him out of there. And I think that kind of played to his demise because he ended up getting tired, started to get a little bit sloppier and sloppier. Kennedy started to open up with his shots and ended up catching him and knocking him out. And I think that led to his second performance in the UFC where he was very hesitant, really wanted to just get that win against Fabio Cherant. But then in his third fight, he opened up, got that knockout, and we're going to see what he could do against Negumereanu. In terms of the grappling, we really haven't seen much of anything yet, and I do think that could be tested here. So that's something where we don't really have enough data to give a big edge to either fighter. But, from what we've seen from the City Kickboxing guys, A lot of them do tend to have pretty decent takedown defense, but like I said, it's still to be determined with Oberg. And he's going to be looking to keep the range, counter strike with that check hook, with the pull two, throw some kicks, leg kicks, body kicks, maybe mix in some head kicks in there and try to counter. And he's going to find his shots early, man. I mean, Negumereanu has horrible defense. I mean, the guy's very flat-footed, limited head movement, eats a lot of shots right on the chin. But the strength of Negumereanu is his chin, man, his durability, his ability to take shots, stick in the fight. And he has that forward pressure constantly putting you backwards. And eventually when he can land those big shots, which you wear down, he could start to take over the fight. And we've seen that happen for Nikolai in multiple of his fights. And so that's going to be the battle here. Oberg's going to be looking to counter on the back foot early. Negumereanu is going to be super hittable. And one of these days, he's going to get knocked out. He takes too many clean shots. And I think eventually, you know, we're going to see him wilt under one of these big shots. But with the durability that he has now, he's still able to pressure and do well. And he's going to be looking to get inside, mix it up, make it ugly, throw big hooks, probably dirty box, mix in some takedowns. And if he could start to do that, I think he can get the finish. Oberg's a guy that I don't really feel like does the greatest against pressure when he can't find that check hook. So if Negumereanu could somehow see that check hook coming or take it away, then I think he could have a really good chance of winning. And, you know, I really feel like this fight could go either way, but ultimately I'm going to actually pick Oberg to win by first round KO. I feel like Negumereanu is going to come really tough early. I think he's going to get rocked, and I don't think he's going to kind of respect the fact that Oberg's hurting him and connecting with shots. And I think he's going to either be able to take those shots, break Oberg, and end up finishing him in the later rounds, or get knocked out in that first round. So I'm going to go with Oberg via first round knockout. I just think he's a little bit too smooth, too sharp on the feet. I think he's going to be tuned up. I think he's going to be confident, really rearing to go in this fight because he's fighting on the champs card once again. And I'm going to go with Oberg here, but this is one of those fights that I do believe could go either way. And I think actually maybe targeting fight doesn't go to decision is better than targeting either fighter on the money line. And this next matchup here is once again another indictment on how bantamweight is the best division in the UFC. Julio Arce, Montel Jackson, two guys not even in the top 15 that have elite skill level, super fun to watch, and this is a treat of a matchup right here. And Arce, he's the veteran in this fight. He's a guy that's been around, that's faced the top 15 competition, that more recently has been fighting more frequently, and that has been fighting for a longer time, has a lot more fights. Montel Jackson, he's someone that came quick on the scene. He came into the UFC within a year of being a pro, or a couple years of being a pro, and had a lot of fights early on in his UFC career in 2021, 2020. But he hasn't fought in over a year, or just about a year, so it's been quite a while for Montel Jackson. We haven't seen him fight yet in 2022. And yeah, so I mean, Montel Jackson, he's more the prospect. He's lost to a couple wrestlers, but hasn't really fought this style yet. He hasn't fought a guy with really good feints, a really good jab, good footwork movement, sharp striker. He's fought more grapplers and then more kind of low-level guys because that's kind of where he was at that point in his career. Julio Arce, he's seen kind of a lot of different styles. He's been in there with guys like Montel Jackson that are really long, have good pull twos like Andre Ewell. And another thing that I think Julio Arce has that's an advantage for him in this fight is he's used to fighting at 145 pounds. So I don't think he's going to be that intimidated or that thrown off by the size, the length, the reach advantages that Jackson has, because he's used to that against a lot of other opponents. And this is a really intriguing fight. I mean, you watch Julio Arce when he did fight against Moraes back in the day. He got rocked a few times, and that ended up losing him the fight. And I think that's how Jackson is going to have to win this fight, because outside of that, there are several factors why I think Julio Arce should be closer on the line, and I kind of favor him to win. Because Montel Jackson, he's a tantalizing prospect, but he hasn't really lived up to expectations, in my opinion, as of now. He's had 5 wins in the UFC, but the only win that's really credible was against Brian Kelleher. And even Kelleher, he came in on short notice. He missed weight for that fight. And a majority of the fighters that Jackson have faced so far have been low-level grapplers and wrestlers, guys like Felipe Colares, JP Bays. But he also fought guys like Brett Johns and Ricky Simone, who are high level wrestlers, and lost to them. So he hasn't really fought a lot of strikers. He fought Jesse Strader, Brian Kelleher, Andre Sukumtath, who you could say are more stand-up guys, but they're pressure fighters that come to you. Julio Arce is a completely new kind of style to solve here, and the only guy I would say is similar to Montel Jackson fought is Rico DeSulo on the Contender Series. And I would say DeSulo was a little bit similar. I mean, he was not southpaw, but he was a mover. He was someone that was giving Jackson some trouble by using footwork. Jackson's super long, and he has elite speed, clean 1-2s, but he's kind of plotty in there. He waits for fighters to come to him and counters with the 1-2s and pull 2s. Big power, great accuracy, which leads to him getting knockdowns and knockouts in the UFC. Or knockdowns. He hasn't really shown that knockout ability. He's gotten a lot of knockouts or knockdowns. My bad, but he's gotten a lot of knockdowns, but he hasn't really knocked out too many people in the UFC. He did drop and then submit Kelleher, but he beat JP Bates. He's a flyweight and dropped him like 3-4 times, but couldn't get him out of there. And he was able to get Jesse Strader out of there too, I believe, with the shot off the break. But I would say he's more of a volume puncher. Sometimes he will mix kicks into the end of his combinations, including head kicks. And in this fight with Arce, I would try to be more active with the kicks because he needs to up the volume and he needs to not let Arce get ahead and, throw a lot of feints, pressure him, and just get ahead on the optics too, even if neither guy's throwing too much just because Montel's waiting too much. So I think the kicks could help him a lot. But his volume, his cardio and composure are top notch. So I see why he's a highly touted prospect, but he has issues with the activity. And I think he's going to have a little bit of struggle with Arce not standing in front of him and not being there to counter. Arce's a veteran, and I think he's going to be ready. I think he's going to have a good game plan. He has really good footwork, striking, good basics, controls distance with feints. He operates off the back foot effectively. Good jab. He's really effective with the jab, and with this being a southpaw versus southpaw matchup, I think it opens up that jab for Arce to use even more. Nice 1-2s, good jab, head kicks. He could pull fighters into shots really effectively, and he's a veteran. He'll stay calm under pressure. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes, and I think he's going to be the one that draws out the younger guy in Jackson, forces him to make errors. I also see calf kicks potentially being something Arce tries to use. He just has to avoid the pull 2s of Jackson. And Arce is coming off a win against Daniel Santos, who is a good fighter that pressured him for 3 rounds, showed great cardio. And Arce showed great cardio himself because he was mobile, active. He was able to maintain that speed with his footwork for 3 rounds. And he's not going to really have to worry about anyone trying to clinch him or take him down, I don't think, in this fight. It's going to be a free-flowing striking fight. And Arce has already proven he can do really well against a southpaw fighter with a long reach, good pull 2s in Andre Ewell, which I believe is a similar look to Jackson. He needs to have the same game plan in this fight, chop the legs, use the jab, stay mobile, and he can win. Jackson's a fighter who's super explosive, and Arce did get clipped when Song Yadong exploded on him, but that's the only time he's been finished in his career, so Arce is super durable. If Jackson lands heavy shots, I think Arce can survive, and Arce just has to stay on point. Feint, move, pop the jab, keep those leg kicks in action, and always stay active with the footwork. He's fought twice since the last time Jackson has fought, and I think that Arce being the first southpaw Jackson has fought, as well as the best evasive striker, it could definitely be a tougher fight than a lot of people anticipate. And I'm going to go with Arce here. I think that it'll be one of those fights where maybe Jackson is the better fighter, but Arce, being the veteran, is going to be able to take advantage of knowing how to win a close striking fight. And I think he's going to edge it out. It might even be a split decision, but I think Arce is going to get the nod here in a real kind of back and forth, close striking fight. And this next fight coming up, we got 2 guys that are predominantly strikers with Mike Trizano and Sungwoo Choi, but I have a feeling that Mike Trizano is going to try to grapple in this fight. On the feet, I definitely favor Choi. I think he's just a lot longer, faster, slicker, and Trizano does have a really nice jab, but I think the reach and the speed is gonna be a struggle for Trizano to get that jab going without getting countered and getting hit with some big shots. And I kind of starting to question Trizano's chin a little bit. He's been a really durable guy, but he got clipped. He got really hurt and dropped, knocked out in his last fight. He got hurt against Hakeem Dawodu, and I think his chin is kind of starting to go a little bit. Choi's a real power puncher. And the issue with Choi has been the grappling. You know, he's been a guy that has pretty good takedown defense. He's good in the clinch, but when you could chain wrestle, you could take him down. He tends to give his back and you could submit him. And that's kind of been his downfall so far. The last fight with Josh Culibao, he just really struggled with the speed of Culibao. Culibao was super fast, super slick guy, and was able to just beat him up with counter shots. But in this fight, I think it's going to be Choi that has the speed advantage. I think Choi is going to be the one landing first, landing heavy. So I just don't see Trizano being able to take him down consistently. Trizano's not a submission threat, and Choi has pretty good get-ups when he can expose the back and, you know, get on his knees and stand up that way, and a guy can't put his hooks in and actually take the back, and I don't see Trizano doing that. So I think that Choi is actually going to be able to win this fight. I think he'll actually get the knockout. So I'm going to go with Choi via second round KO in this one. And this next fight here, we got the first women's fight on the card, Karolina Kowalkiewicz. She's taking on Silvana Gomez Juarez. And this is a good one. I mean, Silvana, she's a really good striker, great footwork, good leg kicks, nice overhand left, good check right hook. She is southpaw, and she has huge power, man. I mean, she's shown that in her last two fights, even though she didn't get the win against Vanessa Demopoulos. She flattened her and then got submitted in the full guard when she followed her to the ground. Her last fight, she got a one-punch KO, which was a thing of beauty. So I think Gomez Juarez has proven that she has some of the best power in the division. And she's real clever, man. I mean, great footwork. She pull counters you really effectively. Like I said, real good jab, 1-2, good leg kicks, real good basics. And that's going to be a big issue for Karolina. Karolina's a legend. She's a girl that's fought for the title, that's been in the UFC forever, and she snapped her win streak or losing streak in her last fight. Got the win over Felice Herrig. It was a really cool thing to see, and I think that was more detriment on Felice Herrig being done. You know, Felice Herrig retired after that fight, and she hadn't won in years. She looked horrible, I feel like. So I'm not trying to, you know, crap on her, but I feel like Karolina's performance was a little bit enhanced by Felice Herrig there, and I don't know if she's necessarily 100% back or it's going to be to be determined. Before that fight, she was getting lit up, beat up by girls, but those girls were high level, so it's kind of, this fight's a little bit of a test to see where exactly Karolina's at now that she's moved to American Top Team. Is she actually going to be able to get back in the top 15, or was that win over Felice Herrig more just kind of her beating a girl that was well past her prime and she's still not going to be in the mix anymore? So it's kind of what I see here, and I feel like Karolina has to grapple in this fight, man. On the feet, she's way too hittable. She doesn't move her head. Gomez Juarez has way better footwork. She's much faster. She's clean. She's going to be landing heavy counters. And I don't know if Karolina's going to be able to take that power. I think Gomez Juarez by KO in round one might be a decent bet, quite honestly. We've seen Karolina get KO'd by Jessica Andrade. And I think Gomez Juarez is, you know, on par with similar type of punching power. And I think Karolina has to grapple in this fight, man. We've seen Gomez Juarez slow down when she's forced to grapple, and she's not the best wrestler. She's not the best girl off her back or even on top. You could submit her even from bottom position. So I think Karolina needs to lean on what she did in her last fight, try to close that distance immediately, get in the clinch where she's really good, dirty box, throw her knees, elbows, get it to the ground, and then maul on top and try to get the finish or win by decision. But I'm not sold on Karolina being able to close that gap and get the takedown, man. So I think she's going to be slow, plotty. I think the fact that she was able to get in and take down Felice Herrig doesn't really mean much to me. I think that Gomez Juarez is going to be a little bit too slick with the striking. And, you know, I like Karolina, man, and I kind of wish she retired. So I don't really want to see this, but I got to go with Gomez Juarez by first round knockout. So that's going to be my prediction. And even if she can't KO her, I think she's going to put a lot of damage on Karolina and win in a decision. So I got to go with Gomez Juarez. I'm a little bit worried about the cardio in the second and third. If it gets there for Juarez, and maybe Kowalkiewicz can come back and start to take over. But I actually think it's going to be a first round finish. So give me Silvana for the win here. And this next fight, I really don't have a big opinion on. I don't really, you know, it's going to be a fun fight to watch. I always like watching both these guys fight. Ahmed, knockout artist, Frevola. Some of his fights have been a little bit stale because he's been forced to grapple heavy, but always is down to brawl, and he has good wrestling and decent top control. So, but the reason why I'm not too interested in this fight, especially from a betting perspective or a prediction perspective, because I think it's totally unpredictable, man. I mean, Otman Zator hasn't fought in almost 3 years, and he's a guy that before, the last time we saw him fight, he's super explosive power puncher that slows down and has kind of average to below average wrestling. And, if you can extend him in the later rounds, maybe you could beat him. And Matt Frevola, he's kind of like a guy that has no chin at this point, in my opinion. I mean, he got knocked out by Terrence McKinney off one punch. He was getting wobbled really bad in his last fight when he was getting touched. And so he just kind of has to go for broke, go out there and either brawl and try to get the knockout first, or just wrestle the whole time. And with the Zator, I think it's going to be hard early to wrestle, so he's going to be forced to brawl. And that's kind of the only reason why I'm going to go with the Zator by first round knockout. But with the Zator, I mean, not having fought in over 3 years, it's kind of iffy. I mean, he has been training, I believe. He's been in Extreme Couture, at least for this camp, and for a while. And so he could even potentially come back and have better takedown defense, better cardio, and just bulldoze Matt Frevola and start to go through the rest of the division. But it's a good test. I mean, if Frevola can make it out of the first round, I think he's a very live underdog to win. And but I'm gonna go with the Otman by first round knockout. But like I said, I don't really have a lot of interest in this fight from a betting perspective. I do think it's gonna be fun to watch, but yeah, I don't take a lot of stock in my prediction on this one just because even I don't really have a great read on this one. I don't feel like, I don't know how Otman is gonna look, and if he does look improved, I think he can knock out Frevola, but it's just not a fight I have a lot of interest in. And this next fight right here with Wellington Turman and Andre Petrosky, I'm pretty surprised by the line to see Petrosky over 2-1 favor here over Wellington Turman. And this is coming from a guy that, if you guys remember, I did pick and bet on Andre Petrosky to beat Nick Maximov. And in that fight, he was like a plus 400, which was crazy in its own right. So a lot of time I have noticed this, where someone will win as a huge underdog, like plus 400. And the next fight, they'll be like a minus 200 favorite, and they'll, drop the ball, they'll lose, and they'll kind of show why they were plus 400 initially in their last matchup. And with this fight, I feel like it should be a pick 'em, man. I really do. I don't really get why Petrosky is such a favorite, because you got two guys that are strikers, or grapplers, excuse me. And maybe Petrosky is a better wrestler, but I don't really see him being able to submit Turman. And I think Turman, working with a guy like Glover Teixeira all the time, is going to know how to, stay calm if he does get taken down and have to deal with heavy top pressure for a round or his back taken. He's going to be fresh for the next round. And Petrosky, we've seen him slow down, get tired. And I don't think he's going to be able to just take down and dominate Turman in the grappling for 3 rounds. I think Turman is going to have something to say about that, deny some takedowns, maybe use some front chokes to break down Petrosky and get on top, or even submit him like we saw Brian Battle do. And I think on the feet, I mean, Wellington Turman, he has a bad chin. So Petrosky is explosive. He throws power shots early and kind of is a little bit wild, southpaw style. So he could maybe land a big knockout shot in that first round and KO Turman. But I think long term, Turman is the better striker. He has more variety, throws kicks, he has better defense, and I think he has a better cardio and volume. So this fight, I think, is can go a lot of ways, actually. I mean, I think Petrosky could potentially win by first round KO, but I think that'd be kind of a fluke type of scenario. I don't think that's the least likely, in my opinion, thing that could potentially happen. Or Petrosky could maybe sneak a decision by, cage grinding, getting a couple takedowns, landing some big punches in the first 2 rounds, and then getting dominated in the third. Or I think Turman could finish him in the third, or take over late second, win a dominant decision second and third, or he could even be a draw. I think it's one of these fights where Petrosky's going to come out hard early, be the superior wrestler, be, a little bit stronger, a little bit bigger guy, and maybe have his way early in the grappling and the wrestling. But I think Turman's going to come on strong later, land some kicks up the middle to the body. I think he's going to start to be effective with the kicks, be more effective with the striking. And I think he'll start to be able to get the better of some of the scrambles, deny some takedowns, maybe, like I said, use the front chokes to break down Petrosky and get on top. And I'm actually going to go with the Turman side. I'm going to go with the underdog. I'm going to say he wins by 3rd round submission. And I think Wellington Turman to win in the third round is a decent bet as well, man. But yeah, I'm gonna go with the underdog here, Wellington Turman, to get the victory here. But yeah, I feel like this is one of these fights where Andre Petrosky, I don't think should be this big of a favorite. So that also swayed me to pick Wellington Turman. And I think Wellington Turman is a fairly decent play as the underdog here. And up next year, we got a strange matchup, in my opinion, with Erin Blanchfield taking on Molly McCann. You would have thought that, the way Molly McCann's profile is rising, even in the United States, but definitely in England and the UK, that they would want to keep protecting her, giving her low level girls, maybe more striking girls, and keep that win streak definitely intact. But I don't know if she went in there and started asking for more money, or she's starting to get big head. Who knows? I mean, maybe it's just they just thought it was a good matchup. But I feel like it's a little bit strange that they're giving her a really good grappler and a young Erin Blanchfield that doesn't have much of a name. Maybe they're looking at it from the Erin Blanchfield perspective and saying, she's someone that we could potentially market as a big time star over here if she could take out McCann. But yeah, I think the line is a little bit off. I would never recommend betting on Blanchfield as like a minus 400. I think we saw in her last fight. She still has a long way to go, man. I mean, she was losing that entire fight to JJ Aldridge until Aldridge slipped, exposed the neck, and Erin Blanchfield showed why, she's such a great prospect because she took advantage and got that finish, but she showed a lot of holes prior to that happening. So I think that's something you have to think about. And it's kind of a fight where it's a girl with limited striking against a girl with limited grappling. So, I feel like Erin Blanchfield is obviously the grappler, which usually in that type of style, they're the ones that play out the victor, especially when you don't have someone that's like super explosive or has knockout power. Where Molly McCann, obviously, she's gotten back to back spinning elbow KOs, which is pretty crazy in its own right. But I don't think you could say, I mean, if she gets another one, I mean, maybe she'll start to make me eat my words, but I'm still not convinced that we got a knockout artist in our hands with Molly McCann or anything. And I feel like McCann, she's more of a boxer anyway. She likes to pressure and, really be effective on the inside. And Blanchfield, she has that super long reach, and she's going to be able to, get a hold of Molly McCann, get that clinch going, and or hit that single leg, which she really likes to go to. And I just think she's going to be too dominant in the grappling, man. I think McCann's going to be tuned up, and she's going to be able to maybe defend a couple takedowns or maybe, stuff some takedowns and get held against the cage. But I don't think she's going to get free of the grappling too much. And I think once she actually gets put on her back, good luck getting back up, man. I don't think it's going to be happening. I think Blanchfield will be able to control her. If McCann does, somehow manage to get back up to a standing position, she'll just get mat returned. And I feel like Blanchfield on the ground is going to be on another level. I think she'll be able to transition, be super dominant. I do think McCann is going to be good defensively. I think she'll be ready to, not get submitted and things of that nature because she's going to know the type of matchup that she's in. And she does come out of a good grappling gym with Next Gen MMA Liverpool. Most of those fighters from that gym are more grappling oriented. But yeah, with McCann, obviously that's not the case. And I think that we saw with Tyler Santos, we saw with Laura Procopio that she is getting better. I mean, she did threaten an armbar against Procopio, and she was able to avoid getting submitted in both those fights. So I think she'll be able to avoid getting finished against Blanchfield on the ground, but I think it's going to be a dominant decision win for Blanchfield where she holds her down for almost 3 full rounds. But the reason why I think the line is a little bit off is because if McCann does come in here and get stuff some takedowns, then it'll be bad news for Blanchfield, and Blanchfield could really lose the fight. She doesn't have a plan B, in my opinion, so I don't think she should be that big of a favorite because if Molly can make it her type of fight, then she has a huge chance to win. So I think it should be lined a little bit closer, but I am rolling with Blanchfield, and I think she's going to make it look pretty easy and dominant. And prelims of the main event, or the main event of the prelims here. This is a sick fight. This could be the main event of a card on a fight night with Dominic Reyes taking on Ryan Spann. And Ryan Spann's funny, man. I mean, I enjoy his kind of like, I don't know, he has like a weird dynamic, man, where it's like you listen to him on fight week, it's like he's like fighting with himself the whole week, and then all of a sudden it's like he either shows up or he doesn't. So kind of a basket case, but you hear him, he's like, I just got to beat myself and then I'll be the best and I'll be able to take out everyone. And man, I mean, His last fight, I will say, it's like usually you'll see him lumbering around in there, moving around, being kind of stiff and rigid, but he was moving on his feet. He was a lot lighter on his feet in his last fight. He looked a lot faster. He moved in with that 1-2 really clean and, forced E1 on that bad takedown attempt and submitted him with that guillotine. So I feel like he looked good in that last fight. And if he can bring that same performance into future fights, it'll only benefit him because when he does usually fight, he is a little bit, like I said, a little bit stiff, a little bit kind of, he's plotty in there and lumbers around. And I feel like a lot of guys can take advantage of that and land heavy shots and counters. And he gets real wild closing the distances. Striking to me is not really the best, even though the things that help him are he has an elite reach. He has 81.5 inch reach, which is going to be longer than almost anyone in the division. He has a 4.5 inch reach advantage over Reyes. He's 6'5", so he's one of the tallest guys as well. And he has speed and explosiveness. So even though he doesn't really have fast feet, like I said, he can explode in and close that gap and have long arms and fast hands. So close in, land heavy 1-2s from range, and he can land big overhands, big punches in general, and put you down, and he has big power. And the thing that I think a lot of people kind of neglect with Ryan Spann is I think he's a superior grappler than he is a striker. He has really, really good submission game, really good front chokes. His guillotines are some of the most dangerous guillotines in the entire light heavyweight division. And when he gets on top, he has really good top control, solid ground and pound, and pretty good grappler overall. The wrestling, he is explosive and he'll go for the takedowns hard, but doesn't really have great finishing ability on the takedown, so it's kind of hard for him to, get a lot of guys to the ground, which that does hurt his grappling game. He more has to grapple defensively due to that, whereas if I feel like if he was a good wrestler, Ryan Spann could be one of the best fighters in the division, but he doesn't really have that attribute. And Dominic Reyes, I mean, I'm hearing a lot of things about him this week. A lot of people saying he's washed up, saying he's totally done, but I mean, come on, man. You got to look at the guys he fought. He fought the last 3 champs in the weight. He fought John Jones, Blachowicz, and Jerry, man. And his last fight, I mean, he almost knocked out the champ. He almost knocked out Jerry. He's taken a year off. I think he's taken, the proper amount of time away. And I think he's going to come in. He's going to be rejuvenated. This is it for him, man. I mean, he loses this fight, his career is over with. So I think huge fight for Reyes. He can't lose 4 fights in a row. He has to avoid that, man. So Dominic Reyes, I think he's going to come in sharp. He's going to come in with a chip on his shoulder. And he has a good matchup here because he's southpaw. He's a guy that likes to come forward, feint, throw a lot of kicks from the outside, which I think will be effective. And I think the leg kicks especially, I think he could chop the hell out of Ryan Spann's leg and really, be effective with that. And he also has real nice pull counters with the pull 2, check hooks, and does a really good job with his speed and, pulling guys into those punches. Ryan Spann's a guy that opens up to close the distance, and I'm feeling that Dominic Reyes might go back to his old ways, get another first-round knockout here, and be back on the map because I think that taking down Dominic Reyes is easier said than done. And we've seen that he has good get-ups as well in the fight with Chris Weidman, the fight with Volkan. And I think it's going to be tough for Ryan Spann to get in there and get the takedowns. And I think unless Ryan Spann is able to land on that chin of Reyes first and Reyes' chin is just totally gone, and let's say he gets knocked out clean, then I'll kind of come to the same proclamation that other people are saying now that maybe Reyes is totally done. But as of now, I'm not really ready to say that. I still think Reyes has some juice left. He's 32 years old. He's one of the most athletic light heavyweights, one of the most technical strikers in that weight. He has great footwork, great speed, and I think Ryan Spann makes a lot of mistakes on the feet. He exposed himself to counters, and I'm going to go with Dom Reyes via first round left cross KO, or he's going to land, counter right check hook and knock him out. I think he's going to knock him out in the first round with a big counter punch as Ryan Spann tries to come in and close that distance and get the victory. And up next here, we got Brad Riddell taking on Renato Moicano. This is a really good fight. I'm really interested in seeing who wins this fight. I think both guys are the 2 more entertaining guys at 155. And they're both different style fighters. I mean, obviously with Moicano, we got a guy that's super long, rangy, likes to fight from the outside with the jab, with his leg kicks, with his front kicks, and then time the takedowns when he can get them. And then Brad Riddell is that Muay Thai style, comes forward, wants to get in the pocket, exchange, slip and return, throw big heavy leg kicks, And it's going to be a clash of styles, man. I mean, Moicano is going to be looking to keep it long. He's going to be looking to catch Riddell with the long 1-2s and the jab as he comes in, make Riddell overextend, and then take him down and take his back and choke him out. And I think that Riddell is going to have to pressure. He's going to have to stuff the takedowns, chop the legs of Moicano, attack the body, and try to open up those headshots and eventually knock him out, because we do know Moicano has a little bit of a questionable chin. And I've seen a lot of people give Moicano a lot of flack for his last fight, but he took it on short notice. He was taking on, my opinion, still one of the top 10 guys in the weight in Rafael dos Anjos. So I think this is a step down in competition, and obviously he is getting a full camp here. But Brad Riddell is another one of the City Kickboxing guys, and he's someone that's has elite striking, but recently he has started to get knocked out and take a lot of damage, and he did have a full career prior to the UFC in kickboxing and Muay Thai, where he also took damage. So I definitely feel like Brad Riddell, maybe his chin is starting to catch up to him. His last fight, he was submitted, but if you remember, he got hurt right away, and that led to him getting submitted, shooting on a takedown, and getting caught in the guillotine. And Moicano, I mean, if he pressures, uses those 1-2s, stays long with the jab, and gets Brad Riddell to shoot in on him on a bad takedown, he could do the same thing and catch a choke as well. And we've seen Brad Riddell get taken down in a lot of fights. We saw him get taken down by Alex Da Silva. We saw him get taken down multiple times against Magomed Mustafayev. So I believe if Moicano can get those takedowns like those guys did, he could find the back and potentially get a submission. And I think on the feet, he can hold his own as well by staying long and trying to work the 1-2s and the front kicks. He just has to be careful, be defensively sound, not get countered by a big, sharp counter hook or overhand from Riddell and get knocked out, because we know early on Riddell's going to be throwing for the fences and Moicano is vulnerable to getting clipped. But I'm more leaning towards the Moicano side. I think Moicano is going to be able to find the takedown at one point and get the submission. So I'm going to say Moicano via first round rear naked choke late in the first round. And we got the last of the City Kickboxing guys before Israel Adesanya goes on with Dan Hooker, and he's going to be taking on Claudio Puelles. And Hooker's another one of these guys that he's in desperate need of a win. He's coming back up to 155 pounds after the drop to 45. Didn't work out against Arnold Allen. He got knocked out pretty quickly. And he's taken some time off, so I think it's a good thing that he's taken quite a bit of time off and he's coming back and kind of recuperated a little bit. And he's taking on a guy that's streaking in Claudio Puelles, but Puelles has not seen anywhere near the level of competition or the type of fighter that Dan Hooker is. He did get a fight in his last time with Clay Guida, who's a legend, but obviously Guida is way past his prime and he's from, a different age of MMA. I think Hooker brings a lot more nuanced and different challenges here. And I see a lot of people shitting on Hooker too and saying he's done. And I'm someone that, necessarily a lot of times I've been lower on Hooker. I picked him in quite a few fights, quite a few spots, but I, didn't think he was the best fighter of all time or anything. Like some other people, I think overrate him a little bit. But this fight, I don't really get the love for Claudio Puelles, man. I think this should be Dan Hooker all day. You look at Claudio Puelles' striking, I think his striking is not the best. He throws good single shots. Like, he's gotten a lot better with his kicks. He'll throw heavy kicks. He'll throw some heavy counter punches. But defensively irresponsible. Wilts under pressure. I feel like Hooker, way, way better striker. His feints are going to open up the counter shots, and I think he's going to be able to really piece up Puelles on the feet. And Puelles' wrestling is not good, man. It's very predictable when he's going to wrestle. His wrestling, you could see it coming from a mile away when he's going to shoot in. And I think Hooker is just too high level to get taken down by that. We saw guys like Chris Grutzmacher be able to defend the takedowns and get on top. And even against Clay Guida, he got the submission after, getting taken down himself. So I feel like guys are eventually going to start to figure it out. Like, he's gotten back-to-back knee bars. So that Dan Hooker is going to be training leg locks this whole camp, avoiding that. He's probably not going to play on the ground too much with Claudio Puelles. So Puelles tries to pull him on top of him. And I just feel like Puelles is going to have a real hard time getting this fight to the ground. I think Hooker is going to be able to beat him up pretty easily with the feet. And I think he's going to deny the takedown attempts. And I think that Hooker also has a good guillotine, and if Puelles starts shooting blind, shooting really ugly takedowns, Hooker could bring that neck home with him as well. So I feel like Hooker should be maybe a little bit bigger favorite than he is. I actually agreed with that minus 200 line. And I got to go with Dan Hooker here. I just think he's fought the way better opponents, way more experience. And I get that he's on a losing streak and Placer's on a winning streak. But styles-wise, I just think Hooker's the significantly better, more well-rounded fighter. So Dan Hooker is the pick for me. And next year, we got a real special fight here. It's a bittersweet fight because we are watching one of the best fighters in UFC history put the gloves down. Frankie Edgar. It's going to be his 31st walk to the octagon. It's going to be his final one. And he's going to be close to home. He's going to be in New York, so you know the crowd's going to be going crazy. And if the fight is close, that could be a huge factor. But Frankie, former UFC lightweight champion, defended the belt twice, then went on to have those two razor-thin fights with Benson Henderson. He lost both fights. And after that, we saw him drop down. He fought Otto for the belt twice. He lost those two. Hung around at featherweight and was able to get another house shot against Max Holloway. So showed really good longevity at 145. And then he moved down to 135, defeated Pedro Munoz, and then obviously had the losses to Sandhagen and Chito Vera most recently. And both those fighters are top 5 in the weight, so he's still fighting the best of the best. For a send-off fight, he's getting a guy who's not as well known or highly ranked, but a guy that's on a win streak that's still dangerous in Chris Gutierrez. And Chris Gutierrez, this is the biggest opportunity of his career by far, and he deserves it. He's unbeaten in his last 7 UFC fights. He's finally getting a shot at a big-name fighter. And this is Gutierrez's path into the top 10 into championship-level competition. And it's a good matchup, though, because Gutierrez has historically struggled with wrestlers. He had a draw with Cody Durden, mixed into a 7-fight unbeaten streak. And Frankie Edgar is just the guy to test your wrestling on his way out. The game plan for both fighters is going to be pretty obvious. Edgar is going to need to box his way into takedowns, while Gutierrez is going to be looking to stick and move, frustrate Edgar, and then walk him into a big knockout shot via a knee, front kick, something up the middle. And I think this is a really good stylistic matchup for Edgar on paper, but obviously there's a lot of variables. Frankie Edgar is going to be the better fighter in terms of boxing, wrestling, grappling, cardio. We have seen much lesser wrestler and grapplers like Felipe Colares, Gerardo de Freitas, Cody Durden, who's a flyweight, take down Gutierrez and dominate him from the top position. Edgar, if he gets it on the hips of Gutierrez against the cage or in space, will, I believe, easily be able to get the takedown. I don't think that Gutierrez is going to be able to stuff the takedowns at all, and I think that could even hinder his ability to throw kicks. And Edgar, I think, really in this fight only has to look out for shots up the middle and leg kicks. Recently, Edgar has gotten knocked out with front kicks up the middle of the face, knees up the middle, and obviously being shorter, obviously always wanting to shoot in for the takedowns. It gives those opportunities for those shots up the middle to land with impact. And Edgar's last TKO loss was really bad against Chito Vera. The loss before that against Sandhagen was even worse, where he got knocked unconscious. One thing I do like is Edgar's taking a year off, so he's not rushing back. And he's had experience with getting KO'd and coming back to win already. So I think he'll be totally fine mentally and do his thing. In terms of boxing, I really think Edgar is a lot better. Cheers has a nice jab, a good movement. He's a point fighter, a pull counter. But Edgar, his head movement is on point. Counter boxing combos are on point. I think he'll be able to catch and slip the jab of Gutierrez, counter punch, and also shoot it under the crosses and look to get takedowns. And Frankie Edgar on the ground is a mauler, and I think he could do damage, tire Gutierrez out. And his wrestling is still there. Even his last fight with Chito, he was able to get 3 or 4 takedowns. He got about 6 minutes of top control. He won the first round by controlling on top. And Gutierrez is not as crafty as Chito. I mean, Chito got taken down in round 2, was able to work his way back up. I don't see Gutierrez being able to get up if he gets taken down. I think if Edgar gets a takedown, he's baking that round. And Edgar also has the cardio advantage here. Gutierrez, to me, in this fight is going to have to find the KO to win. He has 8, so it's certainly possible, but I think Edgar is definitely going to bring his A game, or at least what is left of it. I'm not saying he doesn't have other things going on or pretending like he isn't 41, but if there's anything we know about Frankie Edgar is he's a consummate professional. He's going to be having his last fight. He knows it. He's in front of his family. He's in front of his friends, and you know he wants to go out with a big win and not have what happened to him in his last 2 fights happen again. And Gutierrez, to me, has not faced anywhere near this level of competition. He's never been in a spot like this on a pay-per-view main card. And I could see him freezing in this moment here, too, and giving Edgar a better shot to win. Obviously, the red flags are there with Edgar, but I'm going to pick him to take care of business in this one with his boxing, his pressure, his wrestling. I see him getting multiple takedowns and running away with the decision or getting a TKO with ground and pound. So On the ground, I think there's a big difference between these guys. So I think Frankie Edgar is the pick for me, and I get why a lot of people will be trepidatious to pick him, but I'm gonna say he goes out there and gets the win in his retirement fight, and goes out in a glorious way. And man, here we go. This is probably the best fight on of the card on paper. This fight, maybe the Adesanya versus Pereira fight, but Dustin Poirier versus Michael Chandler. If you just like to watch two people fight, just bleed type of fan, then man, you're gonna love this fight right here. Dustin Poirier, Chandler. We know what we're gonna get, man. I mean, Dustin Poirier's been in the UFC forever. I don't remember any boring Dustin Poirier fights, man. I mean, this guy every time he goes out there, it's either him getting finished, him finishing someone, or it being an all-out war. And Michael Chandler, since coming to the UFC, has brought that same type of action, man. He's been in there and either kill or be killed. He's been knocking guys out, or he's been taking guys out or getting taken out himself, or he's been having wars like that war he had with Justin Gaethje. So, yeah, I mean, this is a fight. I think the line is a little bit off. I think it should be lined closer because Chandler has some advantages, man. I mean, he's a lot more explosive. He has the power advantage. He has a big wrestling advantage, in my opinion, which I don't know if he's going to go to that or not, but would be a very smart thing to do early, in my opinion. But also another thing that the wrestling factor does with Chandler is if Poirier's thinking too much of this guy's going to take me down like Dan Hooker was, he could come with a switch stance bomb or overhand bomb and knock him out, man, and get that win that way. So Chandler's a very, very crafty guy. He is a guy that early on is definitely the most dangerous because that's when he's fast. And I think a lot of his gifts and his ability is predicated on his athleticism early. And you see him early in the fights. He's extremely fast in and out in the pocket. He has super fast hands, real nice pull twos and counter hooks, and he's throwing for the fences, man. So Poirier gets in that pocket with Chandler early. I think Chandler's going to land some really heavy shots and have the potential to either knock out Poirier or really hurt him. And I think that's Chandler's best chance to win, getting that early knockout. We've seen Dustin Poirier get knocked out early twice before, once against Michael Johnson. Obviously, the notorious one was against Conor McGregor, where he got knocked out in that one in the first round. And Michael Chandler's a guy that can turn your lights out early. So I think early in the fight, Dustin Poirier has to be real, real cautious and really, really play a smart game. He can't get in the pocket. Be very, very defensively responsible. Really, really respect that explosiveness of Chandler. And yeah, man, I feel like that first round is going to be a big, big danger for Poirier. But you see after that first round in a lot of Chandler fights, the volume drops dramatically. He's much more hittable. His reflexes are just not there anymore. He's much slower, and guys can start landing on him. And he's not that technical, Chandler. He likes to explode and explode out with the switch dance attacks, and his defense has a lot of holes, though, and when he's on the back foot and he doesn't have that same type of reflex to slip and come in and be able to beat you to the punch and things like that, then he can start to get clipped and things can start to go downhill. And one thing about him is he doesn't check kicks, which he's gotten a little bit better at throwing his own leg kicks to maybe try to, at least if he's not going to check his own kicks, he can kind of try to beat up your front leg to make it even type thing. But he's still, you see a lot of his fights, even his fight with Tony Ferguson that he won last time, he was getting his leg chopped up. And I feel like with Chandler, if he could wrestle in this fight and get takedowns, then he can win a decision. But if it stays on the feet, then I think he has to get it done in round one, or I think he's going to get either knocked out or beat up. And with the Justin Gaethje fight, I was shocked to see the amount of damage that Chandler took, but I think it was also in part because he saw a lot of those shots coming. He was able to brace and absorb the impact and kind of take them. And with Poirier, you're facing a much more crafty guy, a southpaw that's going to be throwing a lot more sneaky, slick shots that Chandler doesn't see them. I think those are much more susceptible to knocking Chandler out. So I actually do feel like this fight is a good fight to target, both the fight ending in TKO for either fighter at -150 on DraftKings. I think that's a pretty good bet. And it's kind of what you think is going to happen, man. I think Chandler could go out there and bomb in the first round. Both these guys have beef as well, so that could play a factor if Poirier comes in emotional and doesn't respect Chandler striking early. He can get put out, because I've seen him talk about Michael Chandler and all that and kind of questioning Chandler's chin. I think both these guys have questionable chins, so I don't think Poirier can get that confident that he's going to be able to take the shots from Chandler just because he doesn't think Chandler could take the shots from him. He has to be kind of cognizant that Chandler can crack too. So just be very, very cautious and know what you're getting in there with. But I just have more faith in Dustin Poirier. Honestly, I feel like he's gotten to the point in his career where he's matured to the level where I think he knows not to get in those brawls and those wars and stay technical. And I think he's going to chop the leg and be smart early in the fight, use the jab, try to stay away. And I think Chandler's going to maybe hurt him early or maybe just kind of blow his load trying to hurt him. And I think that Poirier is going to be able to take over in the second and third and eventually find that TKO. So I'm going to go with the, I feel like consensus pick. I feel like a lot of people are going with Poirier. But I did think about it, man. I did think about going with Chandler. I think that he definitely could potentially go in here and upset the apple cart. But I'm going to go with Poirier here. And I'll say he wins via second round TKO. And we got the co-main event here between Carla Esparza and Weili Zhang. And man, I don't really like all the hate on Carla, man. I don't really get it, man. I don't like, even before the Rose fight too, people were kind of hating on her, saying she didn't deserve that fight, and then she won the fight, and obviously the way it played out, I'm not going to defend how boring that fight was, but man, I mean, let her have her like moment in the sun, man. I mean, the girl's the first ever UFC champ. She's the champ right now, almost 10 years later. I mean, that's impressive in itself. I mean, she's able to stick in there and just be able to be that consistently good for that long. I mean, you got to give her some credit, but obviously she's a huge underdog in here with Weili Zhang, and Weili Zhang's coming off that big, crazy knockout with the spinning back elbow against Joanna Jędrzejczyk, which sent Jędrzejczyk into retirement. And, man, I mean, maybe she's trying to retire another legend. I don't really know if Carla would retire if she lost, but, I wouldn't be shocked. But, yeah, I mean, I do kind of agree with the sentiment that Weili Zhang should be, the pretty dominant favorite in this fight, because I think that Carla is going to really struggle to get the takedowns personally. And on the feet, I don't really think it's much of a contest. But I do think that a lot of people do diminish Carla Esparza's toughness. I do think she could hang in there and be more competitive for longer than some people think on the feet. I think maybe the threat of the takedown could let her land a few punches and be able to survive. And I think she could, make it some rounds even if she can't get takedowns. But I think Weili as well is going to do some different things. I think she's going to mix in some takedowns of her own to kind of prove a statement here. I've seen her really wrestling a lot on IG, and she's trained with Fight Ready again for this camp. And I think she'll be ready to grapple offensively, defensively. She's going to have the strength advantage by a wide margin, I believe, as well. And on the feet, I just think her pressure and, just her speed, the ability, the power, the technicality, just everything about it is on another level in comparison to Esparza. And Esparza, if she wins, we all know what's going to happen. She's going to have to get on top and blanket Zhang. And I think if she does get a couple takedowns, Weili won't get up. So that is huge. I mean, if Carla can get a takedown in the first round, the second round or something, somehow, man, I mean, we could have a fight on our hands for sure. But I just feel like Weili's going to put the damage on Carla like other girls have not been able to, have not had the ability to, because they've been being put on their back. And I think Weili being able to stuff those takedowns and continue to come forward and not be as scared to open up as, let's say, a Rose Namajunas, because she has more faith in her takedown defense. I think that'll play to her advantages, and I think that's why she'll be able to eventually wear down Carla and finish her. But I'm going to say it'll happen later. I think it'll happen third, fourth round. So I'll say as a pick, I'll go with Weili Zhang via third round TKO. But yeah, I think it'll maybe even have one round where they're fairly competitive. But I think overall, Weili's going to look dominant like it is, the odds makers are saying on paper. And she's going to reclaim that belt. So I got to go with Weili Zhang to get this one done. And I think we're going to be saying and new. And she's going to be a two-time champ. And so we're finally here, man. We made it to the main event. Israel Adesanya, Alex Pereira. They're finally going to put an end to this story, maybe. Obviously, they haven't fought in MMA yet, but the whole reason why this fight is being made is because Pereira is 2-0 versus Israel Adesanya in kickboxing. If you haven't seen those fights, both those fights are actually on my channel, so you could go ahead and watch them on my channel if you want to. And they're fun fights to watch, man. I mean, I believe if you watch both fights, you could see that Alex Pereira was actually the one that made adjustments in the second fight, even though he won the first fight. So that was a little bit interesting to see because first fight was obviously controversial, and you saw Pereira was the one that was, you know, cognizant that he had to make adjustments for the second fight. So that's a little bit interesting and maybe gave you a little bit insight on maybe Pereira even knew that that first fight was a little bit too close for comfort. But obviously, setting this fight up, we got the champ Adesanya, who he's on his way to becoming the best middleweight of all time, or trying to do that. Obviously, it's hard to surpass a guy like Anderson Silva, but he's had quite a few title defenses at this point. He's coming off 3 wins in a row where he's won pretty dominantly, flawlessly, but they've been kind of boring fights. And I see people saying this fight he's going to be very boring as well, but I disagree, man. I think he has to be entertaining in this fight. And I did notice that if you've watched, like, he's put out some stuff on YouTube and things like that, he's really been working on a lot of boxing. And I think that's going to be the key to the fight. I think Adesanya is going to have to fight fire with fire, come forward and box. Man, he can't back up, because the difference in this fight between when he fights all these other guys is Pereira has the reach, man. He could go forward too, and when when Izzy's on the back foot, Pereira going forward is not what you want, man. You don't want a guy exploding in with knees with the counter punches, counter hook combinations. That's how he got knocked out in the last fight, moving backwards. Right overhand, left hook combo, caught him with the hook, knocked him out unconscious. And yeah, I mean, he has to go forward, and we saw that in the Izzy fights, because we saw the first Izzy fight versus Pereira in kickboxing. Israel, he was coming forward, he was pressuring, he was throwing a ton of boxing combos, staying super active, going body head, and Pereira was playing the game off the back foot. He was landing some counter left hooks and some big punches. He was able to land some big shots that obviously swayed the judges to give him the decision. But personally, I liked Adesanya's work better. I felt like he was more consistent. He pressured through more volume and was landing more consistently as well in that first fight, even though the judges disagreed with me. But the second fight, you saw Pereira was much more aggressive. He was coming forward. He was closing the gap and not letting Adesanya be the guy going first. And he was landing way cleaner shots, even though I feel like he was getting hit more himself. And we could talk about how in MMA, maybe that fight would have went different, because Pereira was getting lit up and got an 8 count by the referee, which is obviously something they do in kickboxing, but not in MMA. It wasn't like he was out on his feet. Like, I do think he would have been able to survive probably, but maybe not. We don't really know for sure. He did get that time to rest, and then eventually he was able to come back and get the knockout. But when Pereira was coming forward and trying to be aggressive, he was landing his own shots, but he was getting countered a lot, and he was getting hit with clean punches. And I think that defensively, Israel is way better. He has a lot better footwork, a lot cleaner, more technical guy. He has the better boxing as well. And I think Israel's going to have to make it, like I said, a boxing match. He's going to have to pressure, stay in Pereira's face, throw combinations. He is going to mix in some leg kicks and stuff, like I said, but I don't think that's going to be the main part of him winning the fight like it has been recently for him. I think he's going to have to win on the inside with the jab and putting combinations together with his hands, because I don't think he's going to have as many opportunities to land those leg kicks comfortably without the fear of being countered. And I think that he's going to have to be on the inside and being first way more in this fight than he has been in other fights. He can't wait as much for Pereira. But a few things that I think are going to help Israel out quite a bit in this fight are the fact that it's a lot bigger cage. Before, in their 2 fights of kickboxing, they were fighting in a ring, which obviously it wasn't as big a space to move around in. You can cut guys off in the corners and things like that. Pereira wasn't necessarily doing that, but I do think it'll give a lot more room for Adesanya, back out of range, avoid those big explosive blitzes from Pereira, and, be a little bit more free-flowing. And also the 4-ounce gloves, I think, favors Israel too, because Pereira likes to defend with the high guard a lot and try to block shots with the gloves, and I don't think that's going to work as effectively in MMA. And I think that Israel's straight shots, his superior boxing and 1-2s and crosses are going to be able to lay clean on the Pereira's defense, and I think he's going to beat him to the punch, beat him to the, Pereira throwing hooks and him throwing straights. The one thing that you do have to kind of be worried about as an Israel Adesanya guy is Israel, he's only been knocked out, I believe, one time ever. He said over those 100 fights and all that, right, that he likes to talk about. And he's going to be stared across the man that the only man ever that's done that to him, that's put him out cold, that gave him a bad knockout. I mean, he needed some oxygen to get back into it. It took him a long time to get back up to his feet. And the last time they fought, he got knocked out. It's not like it was a decision the last time. He didn't get knocked out the first time. He got knocked out in the second fight. So that's could be kind of like playing mind games with you. But Israel, I think he's too much of a professional to let that seep in. I think he's going to be able to fight to his full capabilities. In terms of grappling and all that, I see some people thinking Israel's going to turn into Damian Maia in this fight, but I'd be shocked if he even attempted some takedowns, man. I don't see him doing that. I think it's going to be a straight striking fight. And but I favor Israel, man. I mean, I think Alex, obviously, he's live to knock out anyone in the world, and he could KO Israel like he did already. But I think Israel is way cleaner. I think he's going to have more room to operate in this fight, and I think the 4-ounce gloves does favor him in terms of defense-wise. I think he's going to be able to connect on Pereira, and I think Pereira has to be real aggressive in this fight, come forward and try to make Israel be on the back foot, but I think he's going to struggle to do that because Israel's going to be throwing crosses, keep the jab in his face, and be real offensive and high volume. And I think Israel's going to know that he has to make this fight a war. He has to make this fight tough. He has to make it hard. He has to stay in his face, and he can't finesse him and be on the outside. If he starts to try to, in my opinion, if Israel takes this fight like he's taken his more recent fights where he's leg kicking, feigning, trying to run away and things like that, Alex is going to KO him. I just think he's going to catch him at some point. Pereira is a heat-seeking missile man, and he's a guy that finds that chin. I think he'll find that chin if Israel tries to play a defense, prevent defense kind of game. But if he goes in there and he pushes the pace and boxes him up and be's offensive and does his thing and, trusts his capabilities, his defense, his offense, he's going to win this fight. And I think he's going to do that. I think it's going to be, a defining fight for him. I think for him, he needs to win this fight for his legacy at fighting and things like that to get over on this guy Pereira. And I think he's going to be able to get it done, man. I think Israel Adesanya will win by decision in this one. And I think it's going to be a really entertaining fight. I really do. So I think a lot of people that are kind of down on Izzy's last few performances are going to have fun watching this one. So I'm going to go with Israel Adesanya to retain the belt and still here. As far as my parlay of the week, I'm just going to do a play this week. This week it's going to be on Frankie Edgar. So my play of the week is going to be on Frankie Edgar. And my most confident pick is Aaron Blanchfield. So thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Like I said at the start of this video, please hit that like button for me. Let's try to get 150 likes. You guys are awesome for always supporting me on this channel. And hopefully I can continue to give content to you guys. And if you guys want to, keep getting this content for years to come, definitely make sure to go over on the Patreon, support the channel. Patreon.com/MMA Prediction Guru. It's going to be in the description below. Going to have a lot of bets for this card. I'm going to be looking at CFFC. There's a couple European guards going on with the KSW card, a Cage Warriors card. So definitely a lot going on in the MMA world this week. And if you want to get some more content, check out the Patreon. I really appreciate everyone going over there. And yeah, man, another thing, if you guys want to check it out, I was on Fight Pass. I did a Gambler's Perspective podcast with Yanni the Greek with Nick Kalikas. So that was a fun time. If you guys want to go over there and watch that on Fight Pass, recommend that. I had a good time with them over there. And it was about last week's card, but there was some other stuff as well on it that was just more about kind of betting perspective. But yeah, guys, besides that, always appreciate you guys supporting the channel. I'll be back talking about fights soon. And catch you guys later.